welcome to Nightmare Stories of the Other Side. Joining us today, we have Lauren and Gina, founders of the Witches Familiar Paranormal Research Group. This group of friends started investigating in 2023 from their home base in St. Louis, Missouri, and have since been to over 25 locations in 7 different states. While their investigations are pretty typical, they like to sprinkle in some witchy flair, spells, reading cards, and the like. Well met and welcome in Lauren and Gina. Tell us a little more about yourselves.
You want to do that, Gina? I feel like I always
You,
take over.
'cause that's your thing. You do so good with it. A little bit about ourselves. We met at work. Lauren hired me, and we quickly realized how similar to each other that we were, and quickly became friends. After about a year, she went on to an investigation and was like, "Dude, you got to check this out. It's really cool. This stuff happened." So I went with her to the next one, and the rest is history. Here we are.
Yeah, we had no original plans of starting a group or doing anything. It was just going to be this fun hobby. And the more events we went to and the more locations we went to, the more people we interacted with. They were like, "Oh, can we follow you guys on YouTube?" And we were like, we
Uh,
don't we don't have a YouTube. We just do this for fun." And so eventually it got to the point where we were like, we should probably give ourselves a name and start a page so that people can, follow along with us.
So earlier this morning, I was just kind of going through you guys' Facebook page. And so basically, you guys got into the paranormal because of the Mineral Springs Hotel.
hmm
So can you tell us about, that and why that got you started on this path?
Sure. So, Mineral Springs Hotel in Alton is kind of, well, has been for, over 100 years, just a staple in Alton, Illinois. And that was actually the first place that I investigated. I bought tickets to this event. I don't know if you know of Troy Taylor. He's
Yep.
kind of a famous author in the paranormal field. Well, he's based in Alton. So I went to one of his events at Mineral Springs, and the crazy stuff happened all night. And that's when I was like, Gina, you have to come do one of these with me. And I think since then, we have probably investigated Mineral Springs, what, 25 times at least or more. We have led tours there. We've done overnights there. We've done, you know, not just investigations, but events where we have like brought other people in to teach them how to investigate. And it's just a really neat building, and it's filled with all of this really rich history, which I could go into detail about, but I'm not going to because then I'll just talk about it the whole time. But there's so many spirits there, and we kind of just established these amazing relationships with these spirits there to the point where when we would visit this place, it almost felt like we were going home. Like
mhm.
we would be like, "Oh, we're just gonna go to Mineral Springs and say hi to Pearl." And it was just like a normal thing for us. And everybody was like, "Who's Pearl? Why are you talking to an empty room?" And we were like, "This is perfectly normal. This is fine."
Fine, everything is fine.
So for what's the craziest, most memorable thing that ever happened?
Oh gosh.
So much happens there, and we get activity every single time. But probably the craziest would be my first investigation. So Lauren's second, just because it's so memorable, because it is kind of what hooked us. We started off with not a ton of equipment, borrowed equipment from the lead investigators at the event, and we were just sitting in Pearl's room, and out of nowhere, I get goosebumps, and Lauren goes, "Ooh, I'm getting that feeling on the back of my neck." So she got goosebumps, and then 3 different pieces of equipment went off. Our spirit box, cat ball, uh, maybe it was just those two, but it like just all the stuff went off, and it was just like, "Oh, okay, this is what she was talking about. Like
Like,
that's kind
oh,
of
stuff is
cool.
happening.
Stuff is happening." And instead of getting spooked, it was intriguing. Um, and it was like you want to chase that high of stuff happening again.
Right.
And then like Mineral Springs is where I got scratched for the first time. It's where we got our first EVP. It's where we saw our first weird light anomaly. So we've had a lot of firsts at Mineral Springs.
All right. Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about the location, and I've only seen pictures on Facebook 'cause I've never been to that part of Illinois, but it'd be kind of cool to, at least drive by and check out the building and snap some pictures because I don't know, can you still investigate there or no?
No, the
Yeah.
building sold to a private company last summer. And since then, they kind of let them finish out, spooky season, doing tours and investigations. And then at the end of October of last year, they were like, no more investigations. But Troy Taylor does still have his American Oddities Museum inside the Mineral Springs. So you can still go into the lobby of the building and kind of see like the grand staircase and the lobby area and then go into the museum. But that's the only part of the building we can get to anymore.
Okay. That's too bad.
Yeah. It's really sad, but we did get to lead one of the last tours and investigations there, which was kind of cool for us.
Oh, definitely
It
for
was like
sure.
that full circle
Full
moment. Like, this is
circle.
where we started, and now we're getting to close this building out.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hmm.
So for last year, 2024, you guys had quite the ride, it sounds like, 7 different states and 21 locations. Can you kind of give us a rundown of some highlights of last year?
Oh gosh, there were so many last year. Um, I know my two favorite, which was probably the same as Gina's, but I think the highlights for us would definitely be like we took our first road trip to Texas, which is almost an 11-hour drive for us from St. Louis, but it was so cool. We got to see Goatman's Bridge in Denton, and then we got to do an overnight at the Haunted Hill House in Mineral Wells. And then just a couple weeks after that, we went to Indiana and we got to investigate Indiana State Sanatorium. And that place is wild. Like, I'm pretty sure you've been there before, or I've seen pictures at least.
Yeah,
But
I
it
was
is,
there last summer just for like what, 2 or 3 hours, and it was just during the day. But yeah,
yeah,
just that little time we were there, it was pretty insane.
yeah. We
We got
did,
stuff in the day and we got stuff at
yeah.
night, and it's
We
want to
went
go
for
back.
the day tour just so that we could see everything during the day and explore the building and kind of get a lay of the land and everything. And then we went back that night for an overnight. And from the time we got there until the time that we left at, like 4 o'clock in the morning, and every place that we went to was active. It was insane. Right? We saw our first like shadow figures and our first crawler there
Caller.
and like light orb anomalies. And it was just insane.
Did you guys have any occurrences happen when you were down in the tunnels at all?
We didn't really get to go in the tunnels very much because they were flooded when we were there. They had gotten
Okay.
a week of really bad rainstorms. And so you could really kind of only get into like the entrance part of it, and then everything else was under like 2 or 3
Water.
inches of water.
Okay. Yeah, because when we
We
were
wanted
down,
to.
yeah, the tunnels are definitely interesting. Like when we were down, so it was my daughter Natalie and I and my wife's cousin Jake, we're down in the tunnel kind of where like it's like an L shape. So we're down there and we had the music box in front of us, but then we heard above us like furniture getting moved. And it's like, we tried going up there to see where it could have came from. But there's, yeah, as you guys know, there's so much stuff in there yet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
We
hard
we
to
kind of had
pinpoint
that
where it came
same
from.
experience, honestly, with like the sound of furniture being moved. We were
Hmm.
down by the nurses station, and this was in the middle of the day. And we were just walking around. I had my phone recording, and all of a sudden, from one of the, because it's in like that X shape
Yep.
there at the nurses station. So down one of the hallways, we just hear the sound of like metal being dragged across the floor. And so we went down there and we went into every single room and moved every single
Move
piece of furniture
everything.
and door that we could find, and we could not recreate that sound.
Yeah.
We
That's
even went
ba-
back when we went back at night and tried again and still couldn't recreate it.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's basically what we heard because like where we were down in the tunnels, like when we went out and up, it came right by the nurses station. So again, it was in that area.
Yeah, that was definitely the most active area for us was that nurses
Mhm.
station.
And then like I realized later on, it's like, holy crap, that's the same area when Project Fear was there, where they heard stuff getting moved upstairs in that
Hmm.
same exact spot. So it's kind of
Yep.
like, okay, we heard something that they heard and experienced.
Yeah, and now we've figured out other groups have experienced the same thing too. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely can't wait to get back there someday.
Same.
And then like, Tina Tibbetts, she was just there not too long ago. I don't
Hmm.
know how she did it, but she did an overnight by herself.
She
By
is
herself.
brave.
I'm like,
There's no
no,
way I would be walking around that place by myself at night,
no.
even just the two of us, because it was
Was
just
it's
Gina
creepy.
and I up in all of the buildings between what, like 2:30 and 4 a.m. because everybody else
Yeah.
disappeared. So it was just us, and I was like, "This is weird. I don't like it."
Yeah, but for
Which at
her
the
to
time
be
we didn't realize it was just us because they were like, "Oh, we're gonna go into this building." We're like, "Okay, we'll come find you." And then we just couldn't find them, and then they were back down like where the bathrooms and stuff is, like the base. And we were like, "When did you guys leave?" And they're like, "Oh, we've been down here for a while." And we're like, "Okay, cool." So it's
Just left
fun.
us up
Just
there
had the
by
two of
ourselves in the
us
middle of the night.
Yeah, but that place
during
is
witching hour.
definitely, if you don't really know where you're going, you could get lost in there. Place is huge.
Easily.
Hmm.
Because like it was just the three of us during the day, and like we kind of got separated. And I'm like, I'll find them eventually. I'm just gonna go roam around and see what happens. I did run into another couple that were there during the day, and they were just getting ready to leave. They go, well, just don't go in this room because there's like a raccoon or something in there. You don't want to piss it off. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, we did encounter some raccoons there during the day too.
You guys, I know I've heard rumors, but again, simply rumors, but that there's Bigfoot in the area out there as well in the woods.
Oh, I have no idea. Like, as much as I'm into paranormal stuff, I've never really gotten into like the whole cryptid lore. Like,
Right.
I know of them, but I don't know, like, stories and areas where they've been sighted and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I've that's what I've heard. So that'd be kind of interesting to see if any teams have like heard anything out in the woods, like massive in the middle of the night.
That would be interesting.
Mhm.
Just do a camping trip out there in the woods.
Right. So what are some other locations that you went to last year?
I'm trying to think back. Um,
Malvern again,
yeah, we went to back to Malvern Manor, which
which
is
is
like
always
our one of our
fun.
favorite places.
You
Villisca Murder
mentioned
House.
Tina, it was her event that we went with.
Hmm.
Super fun.
Um, Pretty sure I have my list here still of all the
I
places we
was,
went to last year.
I was gonna say, I'm blanking.
Yeah, we did an event Friday night and last night, so we're kind of in that paranormal hangover mode right now.
Right.
Last year's where we got the start at Franklin Lodge, also in Alton, which that place never lets us down. Kind of kind of becoming our home base since we don't have Mineral Springs anymore.
Yeah. I went to Randolph County Infirmary last year in Indiana. That was really cool. Missouri State Penitentiary,
Yes.
um, Stevenson
Which we want to get back
House.
into MSP because we didn't really get enough time in the places we wanted to, and they had one of the buildings closed down while we
Yeah,
were
I heard
there for
that.
renovations. So we're hoping to get back in there at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely on my list, but it'll probably be a while till I get there.
Yeah, Missouri State Penitentiary is a really cool place, and we did have some neat experiences there. We did capture, well, we didn't, but our friend that came with us captured a shadow figure in the gas chamber, which was kind of cool. But we didn't get to investigate down there because they wanted to close it off, and there was a rainstorm coming in, and we didn't want to do the half-mile walk down to the gas chamber in the
In the
storm.
rain.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I forget which building it is, but the one that housed like death row inmates was closed. So we didn't get to go in that building at all. But it's open now. But I think MSP is like $2,500 to rent overnight, so
Right. And then
a
I
little
think
out of
it's
our
like
price
what
range.
I think you have to have like 15 people too, they say.
Yeah.
But yeah, like for me, it's like I want to get there, but it's like, I investigate with my daughter and she's gonna be 12, and that's one of those places it's 18 plus. So
Hmm.
it's like if I get the opportunity to go before her, I'll do it. But it's like I really want to go to all the places with her.
Yeah,
I like the
understandable.
places that do let the younger ones come in because just investigating with kids is so fascinating.
It
Like we've
is.
now had two events where we've had these kids with us who couldn't be older than 12. One Friday night and one just a couple months ago, and just watching them doing Estes is fascinating. Like, because kids are so in tune with that still
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
they just, keep going and going and going. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's fun.
And they pick up on things that, sometimes adults don't, or they
Mm,
might have a connection with spirits or energies that adults wouldn't because, children's spirits don't necessarily trust the adults when they come in. But if they see another kid, they're like, oh, hey, let's play.
mm.
Yeah.
Because I took my niece on her first investigation in Mineral Springs, and I have never gotten so much cat ball and REM pod interaction as I did that night that I took her with me. Like whatever was there was just like ready to play.
Yeah. And she loves going, and she's excited for our investigation to start up next month. And she like researches the heck out of every place we go.
Yeah. We used to like do some pretty heavy research, and then we kind of got to this point in our personal paranormal journey. Like obviously, I have no issues with other people that, want to do the research and make sure they have all the facts and the correct information before they go in. But um as individuals that have empathic abilities, I think sometimes when we do a lot of research, sometimes it can kind of mess with
Way.
the things we're experiencing and kind of
Yeah.
sway us
Mhm,
one way or another. So we've kind of gotten to a point where we don't do a ton of information. Like we go in with basic things like, what time period was the building built? When
mhm,
was it, active for the living? But we don't look into like specific stories because we want to see if we pick up on any names
Yeah.
or any specific energies or activities that are happening. And then afterwards is when we kind of do the deep dive into, other people's paranormal experiences, their specific stories, that kind of stuff.
mhm.
Yeah. So you mentioned you had an event last night and Friday night. What were those?
So Friday we were helping with one of Troy Taylor's events. It was like an Estes class, held in his museum. They do one at least once a month, every other month. There's going to be several more. And it was just a lot of fun. It was a group of people. We kind of explained what Estes was, and then we were just there to help them if they needed it. So that's where we had that one kiddo, and he was just really in tune to it. It was pretty awesome. So like they set him up little groups around the museum by stuff that is known to be haunted and by stuff that's not known to be haunted to kind of see if they could pick up on where the active spots are. And then last night was another public group investigation at Franklin Lodge.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're also active with a local group here called Midwest Paranormal Investigators Consortium. And basically, we run events that are local to like the St. Louis area. So our main location that we have is the Franklin Lodge. It's a Masonic lodge that's in Alton, Illinois. So we have an event there once a month. And we had a couple friends that came into town for this one. So we were there until about 2 in the morning.
That's not too bad. Then you got a little bit of sleep, anyways.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, I mean, by the time I got home and actually got comfortable and went to bed, it was probably almost, between 4 and 5.
But yeah, the craziest, like for travel wise, crazy experience I ever had. My first investigation I went on, we were down at Edinburgh Manor and we investigated till about 2:30 in the morning. And then we drove back that night. That was rough.
Yeah. We drove straight home after ISS. So we had
That was
been
very
there
rough.
um from like noon that day until 5 a.m. And then we drove straight back, which it was almost a 4-hour drive for us. And I drove. And of course, Gina and Mo fell asleep, and I'm sitting there driving like, stay awake.
You're right.
I tried very hard not to fall asleep on you.
I know. But at one point I look over and Gina's just like in the front seat, Mo's sound asleep in the back seat. And I'm just like, see how it is, guys. Thanks.
Yeah. Another thing that caught my eye on your Facebook page. So I've never heard of it until today, but the St. Louis Haunted Mansion.
Hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so St. Louis Haunted Mansion, it is local. It's close to downtown. It's really close to where like the Lemp, I don't know if you know St. Louis, the Lemp family is
I've
pretty
heard of it.
famous.
Yeah.
They have a mansion, they're a brewery. Their mansion is super haunted. But it's just a couple minutes away from the Lemp property. It's owned by a woman named Nicole. She is wonderful. We adore her. Um, but this building was kind of used for several different things. Like at one point, it was a brothel. At one point, it was a butcher shop. At one point, it was a restaurant.
Um,
So it's just kind of been through this myriad of different evolutions of this building. And she's been renovating it, so it hasn't really been open to the public. We were fortunate that we have gotten to investigate there a couple times, and it's a super fun place. Like it has a really fun energy to it,
Mhm.
especially in like the main floor. The basement, not so much. The basement is a little uncomfortable, but like the main level, there's a spirit there named Ginger, and we think that she worked at the brothel when it was a brothel, and she's just super fun. Like she likes to open the bathroom door while people are in there and just like
Oh,
walk in. She likes to set stuff off. She really likes when men come into the building because she likes to pick on them a little bit, especially if they're not into paranormal and they're kind of scared. She really likes to make stuff go off to kind of spook them a little bit because she thinks it's funny. But she has a grand opening at the end of this month, where she's gonna open up the building. They finally got their occupancy permit so that now she can start having events there.
we're
It's
super
really
excited
really
to
cool.
see
I'm excited to get
what
back
all's going to
into the
happen.
building. I'm
Can't wait to
excited
see
to
what
see
all
it.
she did with it.
Yeah, because she's been renovating it and we haven't seen it since she, first got the building. So it's going to be fun to see all of the renovations that they've done there.
nice. Okay, and then next topic is you got a bit next busy weekend coming up. You guys have the Sally House and the Missouri Paracon.
Yeah.
We've been planning this trip for a year. Soon as they announced Paracon, we were like, all right, we're going, we're going. And then
Yeah, but
Lauren
we
was
didn't decide to
actually
go to the Sally House until like
a month ago
a month ago.
because Lauren was looking at it and she was like, well, we're driving out on Thursday because Paracon starts at 9 a.m. on Friday. And like, we've got the hotel. Sally House is only less than an hour away. Let me see if it's open. So if you look to see if it was open and it's super reasonable to rent for the
Yeah, it's
night,
only
she's like, "Do you
$250.
want
Well,
to?" It's
that's
like,
not bad.
yes. Yeah, so we just decided to add the Sally House. We're not gonna stay the full night because we do need a little bit of sleep before Paracon, but still we're gonna have the Sally House to ourselves for like 12 hours.
Yeah, so
Nice.
we have it from 3 p.m. until technically until 10 a.m. the next morning, but we'll probably leave sometime between like 2 and 3 to head back to the hotel to sleep for a few hours. Because, I don't want to miss Richard Estep as the first panel at Missouri Paracon,
Right.
and I don't want to miss his panel. So we'll have to be there early. But it's going to be fun. Gina and I have been to the Sally House twice already, but we've only done the daytime tours.
Okay.
So this will be the first time that we're actually doing an overnight, and
It'll be the
I'm
first time we've
super
been there for more
excited.
than an hour.
Hmm.
And both times we got some crazy stuff, so it's gonna be interesting.
And this will
That's
be the first time that our other group member Mick wasn't able to join us today, but this will be his first time coming to Sally House, and he's super excited too.
so like when you
And
were
the
there during the day, what kind of things happened?
the first time we went, we were with our Texas friends, and it was and Tina, and two people got scratched and
In
were
different rooms
bleeding
at the same
in
time.
different rooms. Yep.
Interesting.
So we didn't mean to do a dual Estes method thing, but it kind of ended up that way because Lauren was in one room, and
I was in the
then
nursery.
our other two friends were in like the main bedroom. They had the door closed, and then me, Tina, and the other people who were with us were in the hallway. And just like listening to what we were talking about with Lauren and her responses, she was responding to we could hear the other two in the main room, and like they were talking to each other. And like those of us in the hallway were like, well, this is interesting. And then two of them got scratched at the same time. So that was
Yeah,
fun.
I
And
got
then
scratched like right by my ear, like down the side, like but basically where my headphone was. Like there was just a scratch down my cheek, and the other gentleman that was in the other room, Chuck, like his head started bleeding, like on the top of his head. So, and it would have been about the same time that both of us got scratched, like simultaneously.
And then just this last time we went with our friends from Ghost, and we basically just did a bunch of Estes, like it's kind of our go-to. And while Lauren was under, she had no idea what was happening. I pulled out playing cards because while we were in Texas, we found that it's really fun to play blackjack with spirits if they're
Well,
into it.
definitely.
So we started playing blackjack and he kept losing. And I think the funniest part about that was it was his last hand. He lost again. So I was like, all right, do you want to do it again or not? And Lauren just goes, oh, goodbye. And then that was it.
But I was
So,
saying things, and I was like in this weird trance. I had no idea how much time was passing. But I was saying things like hit
mhm.
and like things that would have corresponded with somebody being dealt a blackjack hand, but I had
And she
no
had no
idea what
idea.
was going on.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think we played blackjack once at the Boyd House. I was there with my daughter and then Tina and Marcus and then Chad, and we were probably had a good 2 hour blackjack session going on down in the basement.
Hmm.
It was very interesting.
Yeah,
But I
the
wasn't
first time
there
we ever
for most
did,
of it. I was kind of roaming around the house doing other stuff too. So
yeah, the first time that we ever realized that things like playing cards and stuff was actually at Haunted Hill House, and we were with Tina and Marcus too.
Mhm.
I feel like there's like an ongoing pattern here of Tina being there. But we were at Haunted Hill House. We were in what they call the Scratcher Room, which is known for having a very aggressive male energy that likes to scratch people. That's why it's called that. But for some reason, I was just really drawn to that room. I went in, I was like, I don't know. I feel like I need to be in here. And they're like, "Are you sure? You're a girl. It's probably not gonna like you." And so I was under for Estes, and I don't even know how much time we spent in there
So
playing
much time.
blackjack and roulette and all these things, and like REM pods and rope lights, and everything was going off. And it was so much like I've never had so much fun doing an Estes session
Mhm.
as we did in that room.
I think the first time we were in there for about an hour and then we left did other stuff and then we came back and played more for like another hour, hour and a half. And like that's kind of where Marcus really got his first taste of investigating and the bug for it because like even he was drawn in to playing the
Hmm.
roulette and doing everything. And like we were betting drinks and Marcus bet something funny and we were all just having a blast. It was great.
Yeah. Nobody got
The
scratched.
cur the curmudgeony old men spirits that people are like, they really don't like women. They get really mad. They love us.
it's kind of funny. Like when we were at the Boyd House, it's like Marcus kept picking on my daughter, and she goes, I don't like this guy. He needs to go away. But it was just a good fun, and she's like I go, oh, maybe someday we'll investigate with Tina again. She goes, as long as Marcus doesn't come with, I'm fine.
Aw.
It was kind of
When we
fun.
were in Texas, it was funny. Tina got really excited and was like, Marcus, let's take home a cactus. And he's like, no. And so like there's a whole thing. So when we went to her event at Malvern, we brought her a little stuffed cactus and we were like, since Marcus wouldn't let you take a cactus home from Texas, we got you a cactus. And he was like, really? So it's fun to mess with him too.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like we mentioned these cranky old men spirits that don't like females. I At some point you just have to dish it back. And I think that's when they're like, okay. So like you go in and they start being sassy, just be sassy back. That's what we always do. And it always gives us a mid like Hank at Malvern Manor. Hates everybody else, but
Loves
when we come
us.
in that room, like stuff starts lighting up right away.
Well, it kind of like goes back to one investigation I was on when I first started. We were at the Mountain Cedar in St. Paul. Quiet night, nothing was happening. It's about 10:30. Grady of Grey Duck Paranormal is like, okay, he goes, something needs to happen. He kind of got a little lippy and stern and like didn't really wasn't yelling at the spirits, but was just talking loudly, and then everything started happening.
Hmm.
So he's just like, come on, guys. He goes, let's get this party going.
Yep, that'll do it.
So for doing paracons, like how do you go into doing event, and what kind of advice would you have for those that are new to doing events and paracons?
Well, as of now, the Paracons that we've gone to, we have only gone as guests. Um, this last, what, the beginning of this month, was our first time actually kind of vending at a Paracon, and it was very small Paracon, so it wasn't like one of those overwhelming things where I had to have, so much stuff made before we went. But I for people that are looking into maybe starting to do public investigations for other people, um, the big thing is a lot of the people that come to these in like public investigations are beginners. Yes, you get the occasional group that just wants to come in and see a place for cheaper, so they come to public investigations. But for the most part, it's people that don't have a lot of experience. They don't come with a lot of equipment. They don't really know what they're doing, and they're looking to you for guidance. So the biggest thing is, kind of let them do their own thing, figure out what their vibe is, kind of how they want to interact with spirits, and kind of let them make that decision and go from there. Um, I'm not a huge fan of, forcing training sessions at investigations. One, because like I said, sometimes people that already know what they're doing do come to those, and for them it's kind of a waste of time because I'm like, I
Mhm.
know how to do the Estes method. I know how to use a rope light. I just
I
want to investigate. So
I paid
maybe
to be
making
here. I
that,
don't want to do this.
yeah, maybe making it optional. Like if you already know what you're doing, just go. Go have fun.
Yep.
We'll see you later. But for the people that don't
It
know what they're doing, you can offer that. It's like, well, hey, we're gonna go lead an Estes session somewhere. If you guys want to come check it out, see what it's about, maybe try it out. We'll be doing it at this room at this time. Um, Having some equipment available for the people that want to experiment with different things. I know, like when we led the investigations at Mineral Springs, we just brought all of our stuff, laid it out on a table, and we were like, you can use whatever you want, just, leave your driver's license so we get it back at the end of the night because this
Right.
stuff is expensive.
And
But
we had people come up and like, hey, can I use this? And then they would come back half an hour, 40 minutes later. Hey, can I use this now? And we would
mhm,
just trade out stuff with them. And then we had a few people come up and they like, will you come with us to make sure we're kind of doing this right? And we are like, yeah, sure. And so it's important to be available and open, but not force.
forceful.
Like, don't it's not great when you're just like, all right, this is how we're doing it. Like, that's not what anybody's there for. Like, we're not kids, we're all adults. We can make our own decisions.
Yeah, like
Like,
they're paying the money to be there. And then,
right.
well, we
Let
want to
them
make sure
investigate how
that
they want to.
they get the most out of their money. They get the experience that they want to have. So if they don't want to sit through a training session, I'm not going to make them do that. If they
Because
do, I'm
we've
going to
been
make it
forced to
available
do
for
that.
them.
Right. Like we know what we like at public investigations, and so we try to incorporate that when we do them, when we
Mhm.
host them.
All right. So for like, going in, like you guys are kind of new at that too, but like for going in for like, selling merchandise, how does that really look, or don't you quite have an answer for that?
We haven't really dealt with that yet. Like there was a witches' night out that we did, which we did better than we thought we would.
Mhm.
We just kind of again looked at the stuff that we like and what are we able to make and offer, and how can we do it at a certain price. So like if you go to these paracons, you see a lot of people have like little jars with little ghosts in it, and a little adopt a ghosts. And we both were like, well, that's really cute, but how can we make it different? So we both started cross stitching ghosts. And I think that went over super well. I'm excited to try to sell more. The only downside with those is they are very time consuming to
Yeah,
make
they take a
because
lot of time.
yeah, you don't want to cheat yourself out of money, but you also don't want to charge an exuberant amount of money because like people
Mm-hmm.
aren't going to pay $50 for a little cross stitch ghost. So it's
Even
just
though
kind
it
of
did
something
take,
that you need
7 hours
to,
to make.
or
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So it's, again, we don't have a lot of experience with that yet, but we're hoping to in the future. Lauren is a genius with making sage spray and wax melt. So that's some stuff that we offer. So again, we kind of like look at it at like what things we can make and would be interested in buying. It's like
Yeah.
we also try to do more colorful and like brighter things because everybody has the black, the dark, spooky. So we want to be different but relevant.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like we try to be unique because, we go to a lot of these events and you'll walk through and you'll see 8 different tables that are selling crystals and 5 different tables that are selling tarot cards. And so when we go into it, we're like, well, what can we make that these other vendors aren't going to be necessarily offering? And so we like to do things that are unique to us. And because, we come from this kind of witchy background, I mean, it's in our name. We do practice some. So we do things like she mentioned the sage spray. Especially for paranormal investigators, it's so important for you to have stuff to kind of clear your energy after you do an investigation. So instead of having to pull out a sage bundle and, light it and, use the feather and do
Hmm.
a saging, we've created just a sage spray in just a spray bottle that does the exact same thing. It's got white sage, it's got holy water, it's got Palo Santo, it's got a couple different essential oils that are good for that. And so we can just very quickly, on the run, do a cleansing. Um, we do spell jars. So if somebody's looking for something to, like say their friend is sick, we do spell jars that are, specific to, wellness. Um, if somebody just needs to practice a little bit of self-love, we have spell jars for that. We have prosperity ones. We do, mirror scrying kits. And instead of just doing the mirror with no background information, we've actually put together a booklet of, this is how to do a scrying session. This is what you're looking for. These are the kinds of questions you should be asking. These are the sigils you should use. And it includes things like candles and crystals and incense and all the things that you would need. Um, because I don't want to just, give somebody like, oh, here's a scrying mirror. And next thing you know, they've, opened up a portal to God knows where,
Yeah.
and without like proper instruction of how to use it. So those are the
Whether or
kinds
not
of things
somebody
that,
actually reads it, that's up on you, but we like giving the full kit
Hmm.
instead of
yeah.
just the bare basics.
Understandable.
So that's the kind of like unique stuff that we want to do, as opposed to, the people that just show up and we're like, well, we have, crystals and tarot cards. Like, that's great. That if that works for you, that's awesome. But I don't want to be one of 10 people here that are selling crystals and tarot cards. So,
All right. So for 2025, besides the Sally House and the Missouri Paracon this coming weekend, what else do you guys have planned for this year?
We're
we
gonna
just,
go ahead.
I was going to say, we just booked our first road trip for this year. But if you want to go into detail of where we're going, that's fine.
And so we're trying to stick not necessarily local, but within a 3 to 5 hour drive local. Just because Mick and I both have a little bit harder of a time this year for like scheduling purposes. So definitely no big trips to Texas, at least yet. But we just booked the wow, I'm blanking on the name, the Monroe House.
Nice.
So we're gonna go do that, which is very exciting. Mick has been, we haven't, and we're doing that trip with Opa Ghost. Um, it's very exciting. So we're gonna kind of maybe hit a couple of places during the day, including ISS, to kind of really round out that weekend. And so we're just gonna, that's the first things we have booked. We have a couple other places in mind, but we're definitely trying to stay semi-local this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so that trip, we're on our way down there. We're hitting up Randolph County Infirmary because I got to go last year,
And I
but
didn't.
but Gina and Mick didn't get to go. So I really want them to experience that place because that's one of those places that if you have not gone, you need to go. Um, because if I went during the day because they have just mini investigations you can do during the day for really cheap, and you get the whole building to yourself for like 2 hours. So I did that the day that I went for the overnight. So I had the entire building to myself, and I just wandered around and I was experiencing things during the day, and then that just escalated overnight. And so I'm like, I really want you guys to go and experience this place because, I can talk about it until I'm blue in the face, but until you experience it for yourself, it's not as cool as it is for me.
Yeah.
So we're starting there and then we're doing Monroe House overnight and then on the way home we're doing the day tour at Indiana State again because Heaven and Jonathan haven't been there. So excited for that. The other big places that we want to hit this year, which we're kind of waiting until after Paracon to book places because all of our extra money
Money.
we're kind of, setting to the side 'cause like I'm gonna buy a lot of stuff at
Yeah, because
Paracon.
Gina has come out with like 20 different cryptids,
Oh, I know.
ma'am.
Yeah, I'm trying to have her do a bat one for me, and she goes, "Oh, I'll put it on the list." And
We were excited. We're the ones that told her about the Loveland Frog, and so she posted that one. We were like, "Yay! We'll
Yeah.
buy one at Paracon if you still have them available." And then every day she has new ones. I'm like, Tina, Tina, Tina.
slow
This
So I've
down.
got so much money out, and just like half of it, I'm just gonna go up to her and be like, "Oh,
So, we're kind of waiting because I know, a lot of these places that are, $500 or $600 once you put down half when you pick your date. And I'm like, well, I don't have an extra $300 right now because
Yeah,
all of my extra money is going into savings for Paracon. So, we're kind of waiting until after this next weekend, and then we're going to look into actually booking some dates. But we do want to head back out to the Kansas City area. Um, we really want to go to Sleeper Mortuary this year, and support Tori with her, opening year
yeah.
there at Sleeper. And then I really want to go back. We went to McIntyre Villa, not this
not
last year, but
last
the
year, but
end
the
of the,
November before."
yeah. So November of 23,
3.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
We went, but it was at the end of this, 3-day long overnight investigations, and we were so tired by the time we got there that we ended up sleeping half of the
Half
night
of
that we
it.
were there. So I really want to go back there and just kind of experience the full overnight and be able to investigate, those extra hours that we were catching up on sleep while we were there. So that'll be the other big road trip that we're doing probably later this year, towards the end of summer. Um, would like to make it back to Malvern Manor, but it's, a 6.5 hour drive for us from St. Louis. So we'll see. Um, Waverly Hills is another one that's on our radar, hopefully for this year, because it's only 4 hours away, but we need a group of people to be able to do that one. And I don't think that they let you do private investigations on weekends there anymore.
They do not.
So it would have to be a weeknight, which is kind of iffy for our scheduling. Um,
Works for me. It's iffy for everybody else. It's
I can
actually
make it
preferred
work.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the two of us can make it work fairly easily, but the rest of our usual bunch of crew,
And that's one
a
that's like
little trickier.
$1,000. So we would need that group of 10 on a
Yeah,
weeknight to be able to do that one.
we're heading out there on June 17th.
Nice.
Yeah, I was,
Do you have any openings?
hey, if you want to join us, come on out.
I'll be open for that.
We can definitely chat more. So yeah, I was on the computer at midnight waiting for the booking to open. And like
Mhm.
our original date was June 19th that we are trying to get because we're doing a big road trip out there. And it was like half an hour into the new year, and like, the dates were slowly opening up. And I had June 19th picked and went in there, and all of a sudden they was like, oh, it's not available anymore. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, we already had Post Town Elementary booked on June 18th. And it's like, great. So luckily I got June 17th. Otherwise, that whole trip would have been like upended. But like what we're doing now is we're doing two mystery locations, which only I and my daughter know about, and then Waverly and Post Town. But now we're having to do it backwards because we were supposed to do the mystery locations last.
Gotcha.
So just because of the booking, it just kind of changed things a little bit. But
It does that.
luckily it
That
worked out.
happens.
Yeah, I know places like Missouri State Penitentiary, like you have to get on the website like as soon as dates open because they go. Even like Indiana State Sanatorium, because we were trying to look for dates for April to go there for an overnight. And they kept being like, "Oh, it's not open yet. It's not open yet. It's not open yet." And then they posted something, and then within like 2 hours, everything in April was booked. And I was like, "Well, okay."
Yeah, yeah. So like, you know, one instance, my nephew, he just turned 18 years old today. And I was talking to my mom yesterday, and he goes, oh, I want to go investigating for my birthday. He goes, I want to go to Edinburgh Manor. He just has it in his head, again, 18 years old, that you can just go to these locations and get in just like that. And it's like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
It's like places like that book out fast. He's like, oh, if I drive down there, he goes, they'd let me in and investigate. I'm like, dude, no, they won't.
Nope.
That's the immaturity right there.
Yeah, and honestly, when we decided to do this, I didn't realize that some of these places were so hard to get into.
Yeah.
And that's why we decided to do just public events at places like Missouri State Penitentiary and
Mm-hmm.
Indiana State Sanatorium because they're so difficult to get a date for that we were just like, okay, well, what group is hosting a public investigation there? Because that's going to be the only chance we have to go.
You know, so if you had to pick a location for each of you for a bucket list location to investigate, what would it be? This is like one of my favorite questions to ask.
Mine is very weirdly niche and like no one ever talks about it, but my top location is the Whaley House because I am a Whaley and it's been on my list since before I even started investigating. I've wanted to see the Whaley House since I first found out about the Whaley House. And it's actually fairly cheap to investigate in it. It's just getting to San Diego to do it.
Right.
So,
That's a
like,
little
I
trek
even
up there.
went on a trip out to California and I asked my friend because we road tripped down to LA and was like, if we have time, can you take me to the Whaley House? And then I mapped it and it was too far away. So I was like, never mind.
Because everything in California is like an 8-hour
So
drive.
far away. Yep.
Right.
Because I was up in the like San Jose area and then we road tripped the 6, 7 hours to LA. And even from there to San Diego was another 6 hours. So I was like,
Yeah, it's crazy.
Mine kind of bounces back and forth, but they're very similar places. Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum and
which we were
Pennhurst.
supposed to go to Trans-Allegheny last year, and then just a
Yeah.
lot of stuff happened and the trip got canceled.
We
But
we
that
had a
is
whole
like my
trip.
second.
We had a whole trip booked last fall to go to West Virginia, um, to do Trans-Allegheny, Sweet Springs, and
Lake Shawnee Amusement
Lake
Park.
Shawnee Amusement Park. And then I think like because we had a group of 10, and then
Mhm.
four of those people had to cancel. And so after that, it was going to be like an extra $500 for each
Yep,
person
Mhm.
that was going. And I was like, I can't afford that.
yep.
So we just had to unfortunately cancel it, which really sucked. But I
It
guess it
sucked, but
just
it
means that
ended
we
up
weren't supposed to go then.
right. It ended up working out for the best, just for personal reasons. And we found local stuff to do here. We ended up going and getting tattoos on Friday the 13th and did a little local investigation and just kind of made the best of it.
Book signing with my
So,
favorite author that I
yeah,
didn't
that
know was
was
going to be
fun.
in town. So, but yeah, those two places, I've always been absolutely fascinated with psychology
Same.
and the history of, mental illness and how, as a society, we have progressed with our treatment of mental illness. And so I think going to these places that, used to treat these things when we didn't really know a lot about them or how to treat them would be just, like absolutely fascinating. Not to mention that they're like hotbeds for some
Hmm.
crazy paranormal activity.
Yep. Yeah, for me, my bucket list location, kind of like you, Lauren, bounces around. It's like, it always goes between like Sweet Spring Sanatorium would be the one place I want to go to, which right now you can't.
Yeah, I know.
And then the other one would be the Washoe Club.
Hmm.
And I just got an email from the owner of the Washoe Club today, and I didn't realize it was so cheap. It's like to go overnight there, it's like $400.
That's not bad at all.
But then, coming from Minnesota
Yeah,
to
it's the
get
getting
there
there
is
is the
like,
hard part.
it's a 2 day drive to Vegas, but
Uh-huh.
then from Vegas to there is like 8 hours. So you're like driving, you know, 3 days from here. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah, that's
maybe
a
next
lot.
year. And I
Yeah,
always
we're
use
hoping to
my,
hit up some of these other locations that are, further of a drive because we really want to go back and do that West Virginia trip.
Yep.
Hopefully they'll figure out this whole thing with Sweet Springs and it'll
and we
be
can
able
do
to
it.
reopen. Because if they don't reopen, I'm going to be really upset that we didn't get to go
Yeah.
on that trip.
Right. It's like I don't look every day to see if they have any announcements, but it's like as soon as they reopen, I don't care if I have to pull money out of savings, I'm booking it. And it's like if I have to go by myself, I'll go by myself.
Oh, you just call us because we'll go.
So, yeah. I
It's
didn't
only
even
like
realize
a
that.
it's only like a 6 hour drive
Yeah,
for
for
us
me
to
it's
West
it's
Virginia.
probably about 13 or 14 hours, but I'd go
Yeah.
in a
Yeah, I
heartbeat.
didn't even realize that it wasn't available. And then I saw something and I texted to Lauren, and Lauren was like, Gina, I was telling you this weeks ago. I was like, I don't remember.
Yeah, it was one of the Project Fear posts about
Yeah.
like Dakota posted something about like, well, we're not able to get into it right now. And she was like sending me that. And I was like, I know. I messaged you about this like in November.
I was
Yeah,
like, oh.
Dakota still owes us a solo there.
I know.
Mhm.
I'm waiting for it.
If I get it booked, I will reach out to Dakota, go, hey, I got it booked. You can come with. Let's go.
Yeah, come hang out with us.
It's
Or I'll
technically a
just
solo if you're going with random fans, right?
or I'll just drive down to Red Wing and go talk to Chelsea and be like, hey, tell
Yeah, you
Dakota
guys are
I
close
booked.
to where she is.
That's my Red Wing's my hometown. I'll
Nice.
just go, hey Chelsea, I booked Sweet Springs. Get Dakota down there.
I actually got a notification that they liked one of my comments today about I don't even remember what it was about, but I had commented and I was like, watch out for that karma because Chelsea's gonna get back at you one of these days. Yeah, that's the one of the few groups that we actually follow and enjoy their videos and like and respect is
Yeah,
Project Fear. There's not a lot of them.
there really isn't. It's some of them are obnoxious and their camera styles are a little crazy and
Mm,
everybody is different, so
yeah, everybody's different and everybody likes different things, and
mhm.
whatever gets you to enjoy the paranormal, no judgment, but just don't expect me to watch it because
Yeah.
Yep.
it'll probably just make me mad.
So for
That's
when
one of
you
the
guys
things, like if you ever watch the episode of Ghost Adventures where they go to Mineral Springs, literally
Mm,
everything they say is incorrect. Like
yep.
the history of it,
really,
the paranormal activity that they talk, like none of it is accurate at all.
The only thing I will give them is that they actually called it a bottling factory and not
Not a
uh
slaughterhouse.
the slaughterhouse. Yes, thank you. Because like pretty like that is one of the common misconceptions is that it was a slaughterhouse. Like, no, they bottled mineral water down here. Um, but they actually called it a bottling factory, whereas like when Sam and Colby went, they called it the slaughterhouse. So that is the one grain of salt I will give them is that they actually called
Yeah,
it the bottling factory.
I guess.
Like I said, Nama, it's but very small.
so when you guys are out in the field investigating, what are each of your favorite piece of equipment?
We've kind of recently gotten away from equipment. Like we definitely did the, oh, this is cool. We need to buy all the things. And we still use it. We still use our REM pods, we still use cat balls, we still use the Phasma box. But I think at least for me, Estes has definitely gone to the top. Like we just get so much with Estes method and using the Phasma box instead of the spirit box.
Mhm. Yeah, like I'm all about simplicity in
Hmm.
investigating. You can go into a room and have all of these different pieces of equipment set up and all the beeps and whistles and lights and everything. And then at some point it just kind of starts to feel like a circus, like you're asking them to
Mm-hmm.
perform. So we've kind of veered away from that. Like we still use very simple things like we'll set up cat balls. We'll set up a couple REM pods. But like we've even stopped using our cameras as much as we
Yeah,
used to. Like we went and we bought like two night vision cameras that were really nice because we were like, oh, we're gonna start making YouTube videos. And then it's just so much hassle to try to
it's a
set
pain in the
everything up and
ass.
move it
And then we
around
don't
and
you don't catch anything anyway. Like
yeah.
I think the last time we used our cameras was at Indiana State, and we didn't even catch the stuff that we were seeing. And so I think
Mhm.
after that, we kind of realized, okay, we don't really need to use these.
Yeah. But like give me a couple cat balls and a digital voice recorder and I'll bring my Phasma box, we'll do an Estes session, and usually we get more from that than, having everything set up with cameras and rope lights and REM pods and dead bells and everything else that goes off and makes noise. Because again, one, it's like you're asking them to perform, but two,
Mhm.
when you have all of those different devices going, you don't get to use your senses to
Mhm.
see
You're
things
focusing too much on
because
the
the
equipment.
lights create the atmosphere so it's not as dark, so you're not going to see shadow figures as much. All of the beeps and whistles and everything going off, you're not going to hear footsteps walking through the room. So like I just want dark and I want quiet, and that's all I need. And then I trust my own intuition from there.
All right. Yeah, it's like, I got equipment, but it's like I tend to try to keep it simple and, I'll bring it with, but a lot of times, I won't use it. It's like I had to get a new REM pod because last August my REM pod at Edinburgh in the kids' room, something legit snapped the antenna right off it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I kind of got that on the back shelf. Now it's this artifact that I want to keep because I'm not going to throw it away.
Yeah.
I tried fixing it, but that failed.
Speaking of, I'm pretty sure Zach still has my REM pod.
I was just gonna say, speaking of, Brian never did fix mine.
Yeah, we also had a REM pod where the antenna snapped, but it was my fault because I went to push it in too fast and it just kind of bent instead of
Okay.
pushing back in. Um, but we use Tina's. We've gotten pretty good activity with the one we've gotten from her and her music boxes we set up occasionally.
Mhm.
We actually used a music box last night at Franklin, um, and it went off 6 or 7 times at least.
Yeah, I have a Phasm camera, and every investigation I go to, something always happens where it quits working or doesn't record, and so it's like I haven't really given up on it, but it's just like, do I really want to keep using this?
Yeah.
The one thing
I
I wouldn't mind getting would be a night vision like body cam. Just hook it
mhm.
up to my person and just that's it. Because like the ones we actually have, the night vision makes like a weird clicking noise, so it's not good for audio, and like we hardly ever catch anything visually on it, but sometimes like you see stuff. So it would be interesting like if we had one of those when we were at ISS and we kept seeing the shadows going and the crawlers, if the body cam would have picked up on any of that.
Yeah.
'Cause we didn't pull the cameras out because we were just so in tune and like just watching the hallway.
Mhm.
So it's
And we've
that's one
also
thing I
started
wouldn't
getting
mind getting.
just some trail cams
Hmm.
instead of like handheld cameras. So we just, it's in the
Set
little
those up.
box and we just turn it on and stick it on a tripod and put it in a room somewhere and just leave it alone and just let it record all night.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry about, holding it and carrying it around and setting it up and all that
If
fun
that's what I
stuff.
normally do with my Phasm camera, I'll turn it on and put it somewhere and just leave it and come back like an hour or two, 3 hours later. And sometimes I got footage, sometimes I don't.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like these investigations are hit or miss. Like you can go one night and you'll have crazy activity and then go back the next night and nothing happens.
Mhm.
Yeah. But it's all part of the experience. And,
Mhm.
no matter if I get, anything happening or not, I still love doing it.
Same. Yeah, this was definitely not something that like I said, we never thought that we were going to be like, on podcasts or have our own Facebook page or YouTube channel or any of
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
exactly.
And then it just kind of like,
Have snowballed.
yeah.
Well, that's like what my daughter and I were talking about yesterday on our way back from Red Wing. It's like we're talking about how a year ago, I can't remember what we were talking about, but she goes, "Can you believe like a year later, we're doing podcasts, we have a YouTube channel, we have a team, we're going to all these places?" I'm like, not in a million years. I would never have pictured that.
Yeah. I think our first year we went to, a couple public investigations and then we did like one by ourselves. And that's when it was actually at a public investigation at Malvern Manor was when we were kind of like, oh, maybe we should
We
actually
can
do
do
something
this.
because,
We
we
had
had been,
just set up the Facebook page like 2 days before going to Malvern. And we came in with our big bags of equipment, and everyone else had a flashlight. And so everyone just kind of like looked at us and looked to us like, oh, okay, you guys are the professionals. We'll follow you guys around. And it was the most fun ever, just
Yeah,
like helping people.
even though we were still new, we became like the professional team that
Professionals.
was there that people were like, "Ooh, can we just follow you guys around and watch you?" And we were like, "If you want to, but like we're still learning. We don't really know what we're doing."
Oh, right. Yeah. Like last July, when we were down at Waverly, we were there for like the junior investigation. And, there was like 50 other people there. So it was just kind of like
Hmm.
everybody bumping into everybody else. And if you're in one room trying to do something, somebody's coming in. But it's like, we were going around, like my daughter and my wife's cousin and I, and these two go, "Oh, can we go with you? You guys seem to know what you're doing." I'm like, sure, you can come with, but we have no idea what we're doing.
Right.
It's like, well, you have the equipment. I'm like, yeah, we do. But again, we're new to this. So it's like, you can join us, but yeah, we have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah. And then here we are a year and a half later, and we've got, 1,500 followers on our TikTok page, and like I think we're almost at 800 on our Facebook, and it's crazy. And the people that we've met through this have just been amazing. Like I never thought that I would make lifelong friends through this, and
Yep.
now like there's people that I've met through paranormal investigations that I can't imagine my life without. And
Yep.
it's just like it's one big family, and we love it.
Well, like I
We
was
love
telling
this
her
community.
yesterday, so like I got my start with Gray Duck Paranormal. I'm not for sure if you're familiar with them.
Mhm. Yep.
But so like I was telling her, I go, well, like, so like Grady, he's my best friend. I've known him for like 15 years, but I go, look at Grady and them. They've been doing this a year and a half. And their YouTube page, they got 634 subscribers, which isn't a lot, but it's a decent number. And I go, look at our YouTube page. We've only had it up for 3 months, and hey, we're at 82. So I'm
Yeah.
like, again, not big numbers, but it's like it's pretty good for that short amount of time.
Yeah.
When you don't expect people to follow it. Like we literally made the Facebook page because we were like, oh, people have been interested and like we don't want to give them our personal pages. And like this
Right.
is something where we could just post all of our adventures on. And now, like she said, we have almost 800 followers on Facebook. And that Facebook page is how we found Tina and became friends with her. And we just randomly messaged her, was like, hey, we're doing this weird road trip out kind of close to you. Do you want to come with us? And she was like, okay. And that's
Right.
how we met her. And
Hmm.
uh surprisingly, we met the Opagos crew at a Troy event. And because we had our shirts on, it happened to be a night where we took a bunch of our coworkers and they all wanted our shirts. So all of us had the shirts on, and they actually found us on Instagram. And that's how we hooked up with them because we were going to find them because of their shirts. And it's just
Hmm. And then like our friends
glad
in
we made the
Texas,
page.
we met through TikTok. So it
Yeah,
like
because we
our
grew
journeys
to
were
a
very,
thousand with them. We
yeah.
hit a
So
thousand on the same day as them.
we both started around the same time, and both of us were trying to hit 1,000, and so we were like sharing each other's videos and stuff, and then we both hit 1,000 followers on the same day. And then like a couple months after that, we were like, hey, we want to come down to Texas and meet you guys.
Actually, we invited them up to Kansas City, the same trip we invited Tina to.
Hmm.
But yeah, I was like the same way as like I can't remember what it was, but I messaged Tina about something, and then the rest is history. It's like you know message text her like almost every day.
Hmm.
It's been amazing watching her go from starting that Etsy page to where she is now.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite things about this whole journey is like seeing how everybody is growing because we
Yeah.
all pretty much started at the same time.
I know. It's
Hmm.
like I keep whenever I go on the Facebook, I'm like, what's Tina gonna have on there today?
Oh, look,
And
another
honestly,
cryptid
like,
you're gonna make me buy.
and I
Right?
love supporting her too because we made a post about this the other day. Like the paranormal community is filled with a lot of people that say one thing and act a different way. They like to say, "Oh, we're all about para unity," and then you see them on their live streams bashing other groups or talking
Yeah.
bad about events. And I'm like, that's not what para unity is, guys. But when it comes to Tina, like I have never met somebody that is more kind and genuine and supportive of that whole para unity mindset than she is.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for
So,
sure. It's like the first time I actually met her in person, she was up at oh my goodness, why am I drawing a blank? She was with Dave Schrader at an event, um the Palmer House Hotel in up here in Minnesota. And on a Sunday morning, I drove up and met with her and had breakfast, and we just kind of walked around the hotel and went and roamed around the cemetery and hung out for a couple hours, and she drove back home.
mhm, she's great. Yeah, we she once we found out that she was going to come with us to Beatty Mansion, we were like, oh, well, hey, we're actually doing, this public investigation at Glore Psychiatric Museum the night before. And she was like, yeah, I want to go to that too. So we actually got to just investigate with her the first night. And then the second night was when, the rest of the group from Texas joined us. So it was fun to be able to go do that place with just her.
Yeah, I've
And
been
then we
invest.
did McIntyre, and she stayed for a little bit and then left. But she didn't stay for the overnight at McIntyre. But we did a little photo shoot, and I think that was like week 8 of her 8 weekends in a row of
Yeah,
investigating. So she was so tired.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
we were
investigated with
all
her
so
back
tired.
in August, and at two locations. And the second night, we were all just tired, and it's like we investigated for maybe like 2 hours, and we're like, yeah, let's just be done.
Hmm.
What happens?
You know, it didn't help that the second location was not, I wouldn't really say a dud, but it's like you couldn't get on the fifth floor because of no roof and rotting floors. And then one floor had a bat, and you couldn't really do anything in there because the bat kept swooping at you. So,
Oh, those bats.
yeah. So, the location, and it was like right next to a busy highway, and you could hear the semis more than anything. So, it's like, yeah, let's just hang out and
Hmm.
talk and eat pizza and sleep.
Sometimes that's fun too. Like
You know,
just
Yeah.
being able to hang out with people. And, even when, if you are having a dud night, sometimes just going into a room and sitting and goofing off and talking
exactly.
with your friends will just kind of trigger some activity because they're like, hey, they're not paying attention to me anymore, rude.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I have any more questions or anything I want to cover. So I will turn it over to Laurel, and he'll do our end of the podcast little
Well,
spiel.
I actually have a question
Oh,
first.
all right.
Um, so y'all mentioned that you practice, and I can tell, Lauren, from your bracelet that you do. So how does that sort of factor into your investigations? Like, have
Um,
you ever met something you had to deal with, or like,
Not really. Um, I think for one, it kind of brings us in with kind of a more open mindset of just, the whole thing about with practicing and witchcraft is everything is about intention. So if you go in with the mindset of, this place is going to be scary and bad things are going to happen and there's a demon here and it's going to be terrible, that's probably what you're going to experience. So, just going in like with that intention of, I'm just here to communicate and being respectful and, you know, that kind of stuff is going to make you have a lot more positive of an experience. But it also gives us the ability to like do things like the mirror scrying. Like a lot of people don't really, do that on the regular, but we're able to like bring that kind of stuff with us when we do investigations because sometimes we can get messages that way. Um, Also helps us be able to do, grounding ourselves before we go in, cleansing afterwards so that we don't bring anything home with us because it has happened and we don't want it to happen again. So that's like we're very adamant about, grounding and cleansing now, which we weren't really before we started practicing.
We're
But it
we're
also
both
kind of, go ahead.
I was just say we're both still learning, so we haven't really super incorporated it into investigating yet, except for the, like she said, grounding and the cleansing. And it's our third member that we included, Mick. He is also like super into it, and I feel like he's been practicing longer than we have, so we're kind of like learning from him too. So we're still kind of figuring out what exactly we want to incorporate.
Yeah, like he will do like tarot readings during investigations. He also does a lot of like bone scrying.
Which is
Um,
fascinating to watch.
yeah.
I love watching him work.
hmm But there's different like herbs and stuff that you can bring in that have different effects, like bringing in graveyard dirt and having that with you when you investigate can sometimes, add to the energy, or bringing in different crystals with you can enhance the energy. So there's just a lot of different things. We're still kind of figuring out, how we want to incorporate it, but little by little, we're starting to incorporate a little bit more
Add
each
more
time we go.
as we learn.
hmm
Yeah, and then are those terrariums or aquariums behind you?
They are terrariums. I have two
Okay.
bearded dragons.
Okay. I've got a
Um,
beardy behind me in the floor back there.
oh, nice. Yeah, I don't know if you can kind of he's up on his hammock right there in the
Yep.
corner.
Hi,
Oh, yeah,
Birdie.
you can see them.
Yeah, he likes his heat lamp right there, so he climbs up on there and
hmm
gets his head as close as he can to the heat lamp. And I'm like, you're gonna burn yourself.
Oh, so the last thing we do on these is give y'all an opportunity to plug your socials, point people in whatever direction you want them to look, and I'll try to add those into the description if I can find them.
Okay. You can find us on most platforms if you just search the WFPR.
Make
We
sure you
are,
have the in there.
yeah, the
Because if you just search
WFPR.
WFPR, we don't pop up.
It brings you to some radio station.
Yeah,
Um, we are most active on Facebook
Facebook.
and TikTok. Um, we were trying to kind of transition over to YouTube with the whole TikTok might be going away, and then it disappeared, and then it came back 12 hours later, debacle thing. Um, but we need to start making some more videos for YouTube to be able to do that. But most active on TikTok and Facebook. Any events that we are hosting or any public investigations that we will be at, we post on our Facebook page. If people want to join us on any of those, um, that's about it. We do a monthly live stream, but the date varies. So we'll always post on our socials when we pick that date.
And we
And
aren't
then
doing one for February because sickness and other things. So we're just gonna have a super extra long fun one in March, talking all about the Sally House and Paracon.
All right.
But those will be on YouTube. They were on TikTok.
Okay.
So it's also kind of why we want to try to gear people towards YouTube because Mick doesn't have TikTok. So it's easier to pop those into YouTube.
well,
Okay.
plus it's a lot easier for multiple people to go live on this kind of
YouTube.
platform instead of on
Yep.
TikTok.
Yeah, for sure.
But we do still go live on TikTok at investigations if we have signal.
Yep.
Okay. Yep, that's always a thing too. It's like, yeah, I've been on with Gray Duck, be doing Facebook Live, and all of a sudden you go in the basement, it's like, oh, okay,
Yep.
no signal. You have to
Yeah.
come back upstairs.
Yeah, we were live on TikTok the entire time we were at the Sally house this last time, and none of it was usable because
Saved.
it just
Nope.
kept freezing and it was a nightmare. So we might try again this time. We might not. I don't know. We'll see when we get there how our signal is.
Yeah. All right. Well, we thank you for being on.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, you're welcome.
It took us a while to be able to schedule it, but we finally
Right.
got it.
That's sometimes that's how it
That's
happens.
life.
All right. Well, you guys have a great rest of your day.
You
You
too.
too.
All right. All right. Bye.
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 This has been Nightmare Stories of the Other Side, a production of Nightmare Explorers.